Okay, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to week 7, which is July the 7th through July the 13th. We're looking at health and human body parts, vocabulary, and the subjunctive with emotions. You're going to want to study pages 318 to 329, 332 to 336. At the end of this week, after completing these assignments, you should be able to identify body parts and vocabulary needed to discuss physical ailments, as well as vocabulary used to discuss eating habits, like what types of food are good for you, what types are bad. Students should be able to identify and form usted commands and know when to use them. You should also be able to relate basic information about Venezuela's history, economy, geography, and people. You should be able to use the subjunctive and dependent clauses that follow verbs and impersonal expressions that express feelings and emotion, such as hope, fear, surprise, regret, pity, anger, joy, and sorrow. You should be able to identify key phrases that signal the use of the subjunctive. You should also be able to present orally on a travel experience, which would demonstrate your ability to respond to questions of familiar situations in Spanish. This week's assignments address student learning outcomes 1, 2, 3, and 6, and they are due on the 11th. So you want to start this week just like any other week by watching the instructor made videos. So if you click on this link, you'll see various videos that go over Chapter 10's vocabulary, commands, and subjunctive. You'll want to watch each of those videos. Then you'll go back out to the class participation forum, click on the thread, hit reply, and post any questions or concerns you have about material covered in the class. If you have none, then you still need to post that you have no questions because this is a grade and it's something you can't make up. You also have assignment 8 where you're going to go into my language labs, which looks like this. You will go into your course calendar. I'm doing the video in June, but I need to be in July. So when it pops up, I'm going to toggle over to July. For some reason, it's slow. I'm going to toggle over to July, and then I'm going to click on the 11th, and the assignments are all going to pop up. You can do them as many times as you would like, but remember, if you're doing for the best grade possible, but if you're doing them more than 3 times, I suggest reaching out to me. We have cultural assignment on Venezuela. So you're going to open up this Venezuela assignment. There are 3 videos that you can watch. You can click on each video, and it's in Spanish, but you can turn on the English captions. I don't know if you can hear this or not, but you would hear them speaking Spanish. You can see the captions down below. Also, if you want to download the transcripts in English and just have that hold that in front of you as you watch the videos. When you're ready, hit attempt quiz now, and then there's a link to the videos again, but not the transcript. So if you want to use them, I would download them in advance. So fill in the missing pieces to the statements given, and then you have some true-false questions. And then when you're done, hit finish and submit attempt. Okay. All right. Then you also have oral dialogue 3 preparation. We're doing the critiquing, so you should see something that looks like this that'll say oral dialogue 3, which will be right here. You'll click on it and you'll see someone else's script, and your job is to go through and give them feedback regarding what they plan to say for oral dialogue 3, as well as I'll go through and give feedback. You also have final draft of writing assignment 2. So you should see something that looks like writing assignment 2 here. Look for the critique that has my name on it and make the changes that I suggest. And when you're ready, you'll open up this assignment, and then you will hit add submission. And in the middle here, this is the rubric I use to grade you. And then you'll paste your corrected draft in that add submission place. Then we also have práctica para el examen final. So we're going to workshop. There's going to be one essay on the final. This is the exact essay that's going to be on here, and we're going to workshop it. So it says, use conventions of storytelling, una fábula. So stories can follow certain conventions that are predictable to the reader. Fables and fairy tales often begin with érase una vez, once upon a time, and may end with y así fue, and that's what happened. There may be an explicit moraleja or moral. Stories often include transitions and contrast with expressions like entonces, de repente, por fin, finalmente. So finalmente and por fin mean finally, entonces, then, and de repente, all of a sudden. So you're going to write una fábula siguiendo el modelo de páginas de este capítulo, recuerda que los personajes son animales y que deben contener una moraleja explícita o implícita. So you're just going to make up your own fable. So the characters in your fable need to be animals. So this is from Páginas. You're going to step into character when you read a story. Try to identify with one of the characters, such as the hero, the trickster, the target. Analyze the choices the character makes by asking, why did the character make this choice? Would you have done the same? Was there an alternative? What was the consequence of this choice? What advice would you give to the character? When you identify with a character, your reading can elicit an emotional response and help deepen your understanding of the text. So to begin with the writing, you're going to identify the moral, the history. Um, so they give you some popular expressions that a lot of times go along with fables, like más vale pájaro en mano que cien volado. So it's one in the hand is better than like 1,000 flying around or 100 flying around. And antes de pedir dinero a un amigo, piensa bien cuál de las dos cosas necesitas más. So before asking for money from a friend, think about two things that you need more. And there's a link to some common Spanish idioms to help with your story. Um, these are some animals that you could use to write about. So you want to write your first version of your moral. Start your narration with érase una vez. Write two or three sentences in the imperfecto para describir el lugar. So to describe the setting and the people, you're going to want to put it in the imperfect. Write two or three sentences in the imperfect to explain the problem or the conflict between um, the characters. Like the lion and the mouse, for example, or the boy who cried wolf. Um, if Write two or three sentences in the preterite to tell what happened and how it was resolved. So this doesn't need to be like a really long story. So just write something really, and actually, no. So just write a really, if No, I was going to say you can even use one that you're aware of, but I would change it around a little bit because I don't want it to happen where you've like looked up a story and like copied the whole thing over. I want it to be your original work. So I mean, you can still use them as a model, like the lion and the mouse. So, but it doesn't need to be a long story. Just keep it kind of short and simple. Um, and then so just write it, model it along those lines, that you pick these animals and that there's going to be a problem and then it's going to be resolved, and that you're teaching some sort of lesson, like the tortoise and the hare, like slow and steady wins the race. So you might want to come up with some sort of theme before you come up with your story. So when you're ready, hit start preparing your submission, and remember, we're going to workshop it. So you're going to write it, and then your fellow classmates and myself, we're going to critique it before you actually put it into the final. And that's everything you have to do for week 7.